get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down. Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down.
Shout out Young Swish. I'm going to start this off by asking the same question that I asked last week. What the fuck was that? Primetime game. Promising to be better. Promising that you would show better. And you put up an absolute dud. Prime time. That's what you did. I've got a lot of thoughts on this game, man. I got a lot of things that I want to say, but Daniel, I have a tendency to be long-winded. The floor is yours.
Yeah, man. So I'm Daniel 𝗦𝗢𝗢𝗏, and I just watched a team quit on national television, to be quite frank with you. And I'll go for a little bit here, Malik. I'll take up a couple minutes. This was just a piss poor game. And for me, it comes down to the word quit. That's what I saw. And this is not an overreaction on my part. And once again, we appreciate everybody tuning in. Drop down your comments. We're going to talk with you guys, and you guys can vent. But for me, I don't know if I could get moved off of what I feel. And I feel like I saw a team quit. I saw a team on national television. I'll go point by point. The first thing I saw was fourth downs. When you look at the stat sheet, Cincinnati Bengals were 0 for 0 on fourth downs. Great, cool. They didn't go for it, but they didn't lose the game on fourth downs. They didn't turn it over. That's my problem. 3 times. I'll go time by time, right? First drive of the game, great drive, entering the opposing territory on the Denver 8-yard line, score 0-0. It's 4th and 2. You kick a field goal. For me, it is a game where we saw last week, points are hard to come by with Jake Browning and the Cincinnati Bengals. You go for it there. 1,000%. No questions asked. You go for it there. But okay, if you want to sell me on you take the points, try to play a defensive game, sure, you can try to sell me on that. But for me, you start the game, you have got to be aggressive, because you're selling the fan base. You're selling the team on last week was a fluke, right? Last week was a fluke. We are an aggressive team. Well, 4th and 2, you don't go for it. That's not being aggressive, but okay, let's scrap that. Start the third quarter. You're down, 18 points, 4th and 2 on your own 38. I understand, but it is 4th and 2. You have 3 points to show for your first 6 drives of the game, and you punt the ball. So what? We're going to replay the game, and we're going to rely on our defense. Okay, sure, whatever. If you believe that, okay. For me, that is not being aggressive. That is giving the game away. But let's forget about those two. Let's talk about the end of the game. I understand this game was out of hand. I understand you probably were not going to win this game. But it is 4th and 2 on the Cincinnati Bengals 40-yard line with 3 minutes to go in the game, and you punt the ball. All right, let's you are giving the game away. You are quitting. For me, that is what I saw. And I can pinpoint that directly on the head coach. You can pinpoint that directly on the offensive play call. You can pinpoint that directly on the guy who calls the shots on offense, and that is Zac Taylor. And that is where I'm at right now with this. Because I look at this. You scored 3 points, and it is 3 minutes to go in the game. You know what you're feeling. You see Ja'Marr Chase sad on the sideline. You see Jake Browning shaking his head on the sidelines. It is your job as the head coach to try to instill some faith in this team. It is your job as the head coach to try to instill some fight in this team, some will in this team, and you punt the ball. What message does that send the team? What message does that send everybody else? This is primetime, and you have the commentator saying, what an abysmal performance. What an embarrassing performance. That is what other people are saying. And I understand it's not what the outside noise thinks, but what does that send to Ja'Marr Chase? What message does that send to T. Higgins? What message does that send Are you saying, hey, we are going to punt away this game? We are going to live to fight another day? That does not fly for me, and that should not fly for you guys, and that should not fly, and I doubt it flies for Ja'Marr Chase, for T. Higgins, for the rest of this offense, because you are a football team trying to win games. And you go out with 3 minutes to go in the game. You are clearly going to lose, and you are giving the game away. Saying the same exact thing you said last week of, hey, we're not going to let one game ruin us. We're on to the next. Well, you're here. You had 7 days, 8 days to prepare for this game. You are here. And in the moment, I consider that shriveling up. I consider that cowering. I consider that quitting. That's what I consider that. And I'll go one step further. At the end of the game, I know you're trying to keep your players healthy. Fine. But it is the 2-minute warning, and you have 3 timeouts, and there is, you're down by 25, whatever. You let the opposing team kneel the ball down 3 times. I have a problem with that. And like I said, that does not fly for me. Because if I'm a team, what am I going to go tell Ja'Marr Chase? What am I telling this team of 53 men? I'm walking into that locker room saying, hey, we quit. That is exactly what you did. You waved the white flag. Like, you clearly waved the white flag. And I really don't understand what the thought process is. Because hell, if it's about injuries, if it's about health, sit Ja'Marr Chase, sit T. Higgins. But you go out there and you go for it on 4th down. You go out there and you play defense on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down. You do not let them kneel the ball out and walk out and embarrass you, because that is what it was. Regardless of whether Joe Burrow was there, regardless of whether he's on the field or not, you were embarrassed. And for me, listen, I could be sold on a team that is fighting up until the end. This was not a team that was fighting up until the end. This was a team that clearly waved the white flag. And that is what I consider quitting. And that is my biggest takeaway from this. You asked me before, Malik, what did I think? We were talking about this game. I feel like I wasted my time. And that is something where I've watched many games. I've watched, even last week, we watched the Jake Browning games. I'm excited. I love to analyze these games. I feel like this was a piss poor waste of time watching this football team, because there wasn't a single moment in the second half where I felt like this team on offense, there was some sort of fight.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I think you cooked for a second. Marissa, do me a favor. Can you put up Chicken Genius 420's latest tweet? I think it is. If you can put that up, I greatly appreciate this, because I think this will kind of get to where I'm at. And I don't know if you're having a hard time finding it, but he's put the tweet up where he says he spent almost $15K on club seats this year, hotel at the Banks. He's feeling a bit salty. I want to talk a little bit about the product. You asked this fan base to pack out stadiums, and pardon me, guys, right now, I've been really ill since Saturday. So I've been fighting to get well, to do the morning show like I did this morning, and to do this post-game show. So that's why I sound a little bit nasally. I'm really ill right now, so bear with me. That tweet speaks to me. That tweet speaks to me. Let me tell you why it speaks to me. It might not speak to people who, have high-paying jobs, or, are CEOs of companies, and they have suites and they can just write it off on taxes. There are people out there that are paying their hard-earned money because they believe in this team. There are people out there that are investing so much into this team. And let me be first and foremost apologize to anyone who thought, because you see me do interviews with players now and you see me do so many stuff, that would stop me from being critical where I need to be critical. That's not Malik. That's not the Malik you're ever going to get. You're going to get real facts, hardcore facts. And here's the thing. Here's a fact. Anybody out there right now that is saying, that is grandstanding for Zac Taylor, let's start off by saying that, or grandstanding for the Cincinnati Bengals team, they are 100% in the wrong. People could feel however they want to feel regarding this loss. But Marissa, no, put that tweet back up. The first one back up, please. I want to stick to that tweet for a second. People are paying their hard-earned money. You're asking people to believe in the product that you're putting on the football field, but yet and still you're doing the bare minimum to protect the product. That product, or a big portion of that product, was Joe Burrow. We saw what happened. Joe Burrow goes out. Then you consistently trot out a coach that is way in over his head, has been way in over his head. I've been on record criticizing that, talking about that for years. That is no secret. Week in and week out, gets out coach. There seems to be lacking in situational coaching, which makes me put on my investigative hat and wonder what exact qualifications allowed him to become the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals team. And again, that's the elephant in the room no one wants to talk about. But Zach led us to a Super Bowl. No, Joe Burrow in the Bengals offense playing backyard football with Joe Burrow running for his life with Trey Hopkins at center, Isaiah Prince at right tackle is what led us to a Super Bowl appearance. When the offense, here's the fact of the matter when it comes to the offense. I don't care what all the little gurus say, all the little nerds say. Here's the fact of the matter is 7 years coaching this team has not established an identity yet offensively. That's the hardcore truth. That's the truth. Everybody wants to skate over because they're friends with coaches. They're friends with people who have come through the building the whole 9 yards. That is a fact. There's no offensive identity. And the fact that Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals team got to a Super Bowl was a blessing, but it was the biggest curse because it allowed for Zach Taylor to have these empty-filled years in which great talent on this football team is being wasted. I do not look at Zach Taylor and say, you know what? Pity him because he has Jake Browning at quarterback. For 3 years, you sat with Jake Browning as the backup quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals, and you told yourself as the head coach of this team, he is the guy in the event that Joe Burrow goes down. Well, if that is the guy, if Joe Burrow goes down, this falls on you. This makes me wonder that you don't know how to actually evaluate the quarterback position because everything that I've seen from Jake Browning has been less than inspiring. And shame on you, right? Because, the organization, you then have to make these players do interviews and they get asked, do you stand behind Zach Taylor? Do you stand behind Zach Taylor? Do you believe in Zach Taylor? You know what they have to say? They have to say, of course we believe in Zach Taylor. Well, we all know, God damn it, that couldn't be further from the truth. It's not because of what they're saying. It's the proof that's in the pudding. It's Ja'Marr Chase being frustrated. It's T. Higgins being frustrated. This team is too talented. Even if Joe Burrow goes down, you are an NFL football team, and all you managed to do was put up 3 points. I said it in the first drive, right? You're trying to make a statement, backup quarterback. You run it down to Denver's goal line damn near, and you decide to kick a field goal. And funny enough, that field goal seemed to be the last play that you actually scored on. And I told Danny, I looked at Danny when it happened. I said, they set the tone of the game right then and there. And you know what tone that set? We're willing to roll over. We're willing to roll over. We talk about players got to play, right? But at what point do we also say coaches got to coach? On prime time, you put up a dud. Ja'Marr Chase couldn't get in the end zone. T. Higgins couldn't get in the end zone. Mike Gesicki can't even get a fucking catch. Couldn't get in the end zone. Chase Brown, who you built the offense around, couldn't get in the end zone. You see what I'm saying? Wolf tickets. That is what Zach Taylor and the Cincinnati Bengals coaching staff sold this entire fan base all offseason. Wolf tickets. You mean to tell me I understand how important Joe Burrow is to the operation, but if one man goes down and the entire fucking team sinks, why'd you pay Ja'Marr Chase? Why'd you pay T. Higgins? Better yet, why is Jake Browning your fucking backup quarterback? And you got dumbasses on Twitter talking about, oh, well, Zach can't throw for them. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? No ball. Before you get on there, you just place empty tweets. You have 7 years. You have 7 years of this same bullshit. In the Bible, 7 marks completion. For me, 7 should mark the end of Zach Taylor as the head coach of the Bengals. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. How long do you have to see the same unprepared team, soft-ass team, get punched in the mouth before you guys say, hey, maybe we need a change in the locker room? Just maybe we need a shakeup at the head man position. You blame coordinators. They're out. You blame position coaches. They're out. What's left to blame? What's left to blame? And sure, this speech might ruffle a little feathers. So fucking what? I hope it does. I hope it does. The product is piss poor. And you got people like Chicken Genius 420 who are spending their hard-earned monies to support this piss poor product. And you want to know why people are upset? And you want to know why people are furious? You know, I think we all expected better from this Bengals team. And again, if anybody disagrees with what I'm saying, I'm willing to debate you any point in time, at any point in time on this show or via a phone call, whatever you'd like to do. But one thing about me is I'm going to spit real talk. And this is the worst offense in the National Football League. This is the worst coached team in the National Football League. The only team that's probably closer is the Tennessee Titans. Funny enough, their offensive coordinator, their head coach was our offensive coordinator, Brian Callahan. What culture? What culture have you set forth? A culture of willing to roll over? A culture that's okay with the bare minimum? Not me. I'm pissed off for greatness. I sat with these players. I talked with these players. They want to win. They want to bring a championship to Cincinnati. Bengals front office, when do you want the same? I won't even say Zach Taylor because I think Zach Taylor at this point, he is what he is. He's been what he's been. He's been a guy that's been hanging on by a thread. But we let 2 years, right? AFC Championship. We let that cloud our judgment as to who this man really is. He's been fired everywhere he's been. Let's call it what it is. Fired with the Dolphins, interim offensive coordinator. Fired with the University of Cincinnati. Got promoted from wide receivers coach, quarterback coach with the Rams to become the Cincinnati Bengals head coach. All while not even having to earn his chops as a play caller. What's the excuse now? Is it, we didn't have Joe Burrow? Tough luck. It's the National Football League. Find a fucking way to score. Find a way to put points on the board. A capable backup quarterback puts up points in this game. But the same folks that said we believe in Jake Browning we trust are now saying it's because Jake Browning why we lost. No, it's because you have a head coach who's inept. You have a head coach who consistently doesn't have this team prepared week in and week out. And guess what? Every single week, we move the goalpost. Every single week, we sit up here, we move the goalpost for one man, all because he brought us our latest fucking Super Bowl appearance. And guess what? Here's the funny thing. Front office, here's where I talk about you. The same thing that kept them from winning the Super Bowl is still a talking point years later. We've seen good coaches come through this building. They were scapegoated. We've seen it. But this year was supposed to be different. This year was supposed to be the year that the Bengals put it all together. And the front office called themselves going in as much as possible. I understand that this rant might not make a fan of a lot of people. And contrary to belief, I'm not doing it for likes. I'm doing it because somebody has to have the fucking balls to say it. This product is piss poor. What they've shown is piss poor. And I'll say it all the time. The fan base, you guys have more power than you realize. You have more power than you realize. You shouldn't have to stand for products such as this. I understand there are players on this team that we should still support our guys 100%. But something has to change. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is crazy. It's insane. But 7 years. 7 years of the same product. And we're expected that it's magically going to get better because someone blew on a genie's bottle and said Bengals win a Super Bowl this year. They stand behind this guy because they're professionals. But if we got to be honest with ourselves, Zac Taylor's holding back the Cincinnati Bengals football team. And I think if you get a competent head coach in here, they find a way to, if not win this game, at least put points up on the board. 2 weeks back to back, you've been embarrassed. What's next? What are you going to say now? How are you going to spin this? Because they don't get any easier. You got the Packers, you got the Lions. What's up? What's next? Is it still we believe in Jake Browning? Is it we're going to evaluate the quarterback position? And somebody says Zach said he appreciates how he's excited to see how the team responds. What else could you say? Great coach speak. Tone deaf. Read the room. People aren't buying it. You're selling wolf tickets. Daniel.
Yeah, man. It's embarrassing, man. This is this is the product you put out there. And like you said, and we're going to get to some of you guys' questions, but it's just ridiculous when you look at how this team, they lay down. And I hate to say it, once again, we could talk about the players, we could talk about the GMs. That's been a huge topic about the players that they brought in. They can improve more on the defense. Last year, it was the one-score games. You couldn't pull them out, and you blamed it on the defense. This year, it's not even one-score games. You're getting blown out by 37 points. You're getting blown out on national television. That's the part that's embarrassing. And that's the part where you look around the NFL, and this is one of my favorite things to do. Go watch some other games. Go watch some other teams. I watched the Panthers this week. I watched the Tennessee Titans this week. I watched the Rams, the Colts. This is a team that looks much closer to the Dave Canales-led Panthers, much closer to the Brian Callahan-led Tennessee Titans than it does to any of these top-tier teams. And that falls firmly on the head coach because of how you got these guys to perform. They came out here soft. And you said it best. The NFL in sports in general is about moments, right? That's what we all get into this for, right? We watch it for the moments. We watch it for the T. Higgins 50-50 ball down the sideline. That's what we get into this for. That's why you guys are in the comments. It's for the moments. And the moments in this game, the moments in the Minnesota Vikings game, you lay down and you quit. That's what it was. I hate to do it again, but you waved the white flag not once, but twice. And for Zac Taylor to come out and say in his press conference, hey, I'm excited to see how my team responds. That is 1,000% coach speaking. That is 1,000% bullshit.
It's tone deaf. It's tone deaf, Daniel. I mean, there's no other way to slice it. It's tone deaf. It's not understanding where you are as a team. You listen, you had a cushion. You're 2-0. Now things are back set at 500. What's the excuse now? What excuse could you possibly say is the case now? That's what I keep coming back to. What could you say now? That is a complete tone-deaf response from him. And I understand his whole thing is coach speak, the yada, yada, yada. But at what point do you say to ourselves, like, we're not dumb? We're not dumb. We all understand where this is headed. We understand what this looks like. In a very real world, the Bengals could be 2-5 in a few short weeks. This is after starting with a cushion. This is after we said everything, was going to be different this year. We were talking about how they could find a way, if they could, find a way to rattle off a couple of victories. They lost to Carson Wentz. Now they lost to Bo Nix. This was Bo Nix's get right performance. You know, I don't know, man. Yeah, go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
No, it's abysmal. And like I said, this is a team that they quit, and it's sad to watch this because I'm gonna play the compare game. But you look at these other teams and these other head coaches, man. Dan Campbell goes out there and he's got his team rallied behind him. And the problem I have with what we talked about, the problem I have with what was laid out with the punting on 4th and 2 multiple times, with the punting with 3 minutes to go, with the kneeling down and not going out and calling your timeouts. What message does that send to the guys in the locker room? They're already trying to fight with what's going on in their heads about, hey, who's the quarterback? Jake Browning. They probably know this guy ain't Joe Burrow. This guy probably isn't going to lead us to a Super Bowl. This guy's probably not going to lead us to multiple wins. This guy may not even get me the damn ball. So for a team that's already down in the dumps, what message are you sending to them? And the message I got from this was crystal clear. I am quitting on this football field right now. And I'm waiting to see what comes again next week because, quite frankly, Malik, I'm looking at the Detroit Lions. I'm looking at the Green Bay Packers. And while I sat up on the show a couple weeks ago when Joe Burrow went down, I said, hey, I've got an optimistic viewpoint. I have no faith in this football team right now. And that's what this team,
man, but it's not even a faith in the team. That's the issue. It's not even a faith in the team, man. It's a faith in the coaching. It's coaching at this point. It has to be. That's what we have to talk about. I don't want to lose track of this. It's not about the players.
Yeah.
Players, listen, the players are not, all the players on this team are just not bad.
No.
It's not the issue. It's the mentality. It's the approach. It's having a coach that's going to go to bat for them. And Landon Vincent, you keep asking me the same question. I can only tell you what I've said at the beginning of the year, and that was what I was told. Unequivocally, Zac Taylor understands that he has to find a way to make it happen this year. He has to find a way to win this year. He has to find a way to win this year. Again, remember, I'll keep saying this. The Bengals did not put out a message, right? When they moved on from their coordinators, they did not put a message. They did not put out a message, a show of support of Zac Taylor. They understand that the time is now. They understand that they need to win, at least unless that's changed from the conversation I had back in January, back in February. Unless that's changed, which I don't see how it has. And every notion that I get is they were embarrassed by the loss last week. And if they were embarrassed by the worst loss in franchise history, people talk about the 90s. This was worse than that, right? That we had never had that franchise record. You know? If they were embarrassed by that, how would you not be embarrassed by your team only putting up 3 points on Monday Night Football? I already gave my prediction to Daniel going in. I said, they're probably going to make a move and panic now. They're going to say, hey, you know what? We need to go out there. We need to trade for a quarterback or do something because we're looking at the position always. We're evaluating the roster. Again, I am not a part of that ownership group. I do not talk to them on a regular. That is not, I have contacts and that is it. And what I can share with you is what I've shared with you. They understand the product is bad. And again, I'll keep saying it. This was just not, hey, we lost Joe Burrow, so everything fell apart. This is on the head coach. This is squarely on the head coach. How do you have your team travel all the way to Denver and you're not prepared? You're not prepared in a primetime spot. This is an embarrassing look on the organization. Know which way to slice it, guys. Know which way to slice it. This is an embarrassing look on the organization. And if you got to rip it up and try to find a way to bring another person in, then so be it. It's not mock draft time just yet. It's not mock draft. Hear me out. This is not me throwing in the red towel. I'm not saying that. Or white towel. It's not mock draft time just yet. I will not start doing the mock draft stuff until they are mathematically eliminated. Start peeking at guys. Sure. Sure. But before we can even start talking about the mock draft stuff, I'm going to start looking at, hey, who are the next up and coming coaches that can make sense for this team? Because this team needs a complete identity shift. Again, Zac was the coach that brought them out right? He was the coach that brought them out of the Marvin Lewis era, and things were a little bit still rough going through that whole process. He got the organization to reinvent themselves in terms of investing in the facility and all this amazing stuff that they wanted. New day, new stripes, yada, 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 all that stuff. But it's clear that he's not the X's and O's guy that's going to take them over the hump. They told you, oh, we don't have a running game. Oh, it's Mixon's fault. Just being honest, people said it's Mixon's fault. Obviously, Mixon's dealing with what he's dealing with right now, but it wasn't obviously that, because we were told Chase Brown is going to be a breakout star this year. He hasn't figured it out, and I don't think that's on Chase Brown either. At what point do we look at the coaching staff? At what point? No identity? You know? It is, listen, it is what it is right now. It is what it is right now. This is the product that they chose to put on the field. Daniel, what else are your thoughts before we start answering some questions?
Yeah, my thoughts, just keeping it on that, is I agree with you, right? The problems are very clear right now. You got a head coach problem, you got a culture problem with that, and you got a quarterback problem. The first one, I agree with you. The quarterback, I would make a move yesterday. That's what I would do. And I can't look at myself with the fact that I went out and I'm putting myself in the Bengals shoes, right? I paid Ja'Marr Chase this offseason. I paid T. Higgins this offseason. I can't look at myself at 2-2 and say, hey, I'm going to let this season ride out. I look at Russell Wilson, I look at Jameis Winston, and I call up New York and I say, hey, give me one of these guys. Because I can assure you, at least from what I'm expecting, it is not more than a 5th-round pick. And it shouldn't be for those guys. So that is what I would do. And like you said, you see where the chips fall. You got the Green Bay Packers, you got the Detroit Lions, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's a very real chance you could be 2-5. But before we get to that point, you've got to try something at the quarterback position, because it's clear right now, Jake Browning ain't doing it. He's not. He ain't cutting it. And if there's any way you want to save your season, something's got to change. And that would be my first go-to. Number 2, the question then becomes the Zac Taylor problem. Hey, when does it happen? I've been on the train of you wait until the end of the season, but see how the rest of the season goes, because there's a very real possibility. I remember the talks, at least, that I was feeling when the Bengals were losing last season. I remember those. I remember the feeling of they're losing the locker room. Zac Taylor is losing the locker room. These players do not have respect for him. That's what I was feeling. And to be quite honest with you, I think there's a very real chance this game could be the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yep.
And we'll see, right? There's a chance that they go out and win a couple games, but I look at this stretch, I'm very concerned for Zac Taylor's job right now. And I'm very curious to see how these conversations shift, because if they go to Green Bay and lose, and then they lose to Detroit, what's the conversations then? And for me, the way I look at this, we'll see if they can turn a corner, but I do think that there's a real possibility. And this is for me at this point, and depending on how the season's going to go, and if Zac Taylor is likely to be out after this season, for me personally, I would try out my hand at Dan Pitcher before this season's over. That's what I would do. Because if you are looking to get rid of Zac Taylor, there's a chance that the new head coach comes in and potentially cleans house. And for me, I look at Dan Pitcher, and that's a guy who has not yet had the opportunity to call plays for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I do think that there is a possibility that, hell, it's a shot in the dark, but this may work. So maybe he gets a chance to call plays, or hell, if the season goes down the drain, maybe I give Dan Pitcher a chance. And that's just looking long-term, because I don't know if I'm an organization, and if I would be very pissed off if I fire Zac Taylor and the new guy comes in, cleans house, and Dan Pitcher goes on somewhere else and succeeds as a head coach without getting a chance here.
TN, 100%, I'm telling you, there is a chance that the Bengals move on from Zac Taylor. 100%. I talked to 3 coaches on that coaching staff that got let go, and they said they shared the same sentiment, that they realized they were told they pretty much had to be on the chopping block, and these changes were the ones that had to be made. Zac understood that his job was not safe, and that message was communicated to him. That is what was told to me directly. I've been saying this on the show, and I'm probably going to get a text of why I'm oversharing that message, but The fact of the matter is, I'm just being completely transparent with you guys. Again, has that message changed? I don't know. I do not know what those conversations that have taken place since the season started, but I can tell you as of last week, the organization was very, very upset about how they performed, how the team looked against the Minnesota Vikings. We'll see. We will see. Again, I see better than I hear. I see better than I hear. You could say all the things you want to do, but at the end of the day, you got to show me. If you're trying to win, you got to show me. If you're willing to, the next time Joe Burrow realistically touches the football field, he will be a few months away from turning 30 years old. Let's put that into perspective. The next time Joe Burrow touches the football field, right? Because isn't his birthday in December?
Yep.
Or something like that? He will literally be a few short months of turning 30 years old. Joe Burrow will turn 30 years old in season next year.
Yep.
Think about it. Doesn't it seem just like yesterday he was a rookie? 30. It seemed just like yesterday we were so hyped up when the Bengals were drafting him. Seems just like yesterday. Now you look at it. We lost in the Super Bowl. And we're like, oh, don't worry. They'll be back. They'll be back. We look up. Holy shit. They haven't been back. Life moves at you fast. What are your thoughts?
It's very real. And that's why when you look at, obviously people can talk about, and I understand Marvin Lewis, how long he was here. I understand it. And I understand he was here through it all, and he had 3 losing seasons. And I believe his losing season that third year was due to a Carson Palmer injury as well. But I'm of the same belief, man. Like, there is no way you can allow this window to just close without making a move. And for me, if you guys read also the tea leaves of, hey, look at a lot of head coach firings. A lot of times it happens this way of you get rid of a couple position coaches. You maybe get rid of a coordinator. And if that doesn't work, who do you go to then? And for the excuse that everybody always says of, hey, well, he's going to have the excuse that Joe Burrow's hurt. You had that excuse before. It doesn't work like that. And I do believe that the realization of Joe Burrow turning almost 30 years old and knowing, hey, these windows don't last forever. That is a very real realization. And the Cincinnati Bengals should kick themselves if they can look at themselves and say, hey, we're going to look at this season and we're going to run it right back last season. Because many other NFL coaches, you look at this past season, what happened with the Cincinnati Bengals. You look at how talented that team was. You look at the offense that they had with a healthy Joe Burrow, and you see that team did not make the playoffs. There is about 15 to 20 other NFL teams that would have fired Zac Taylor's ass right then and there. And that is the truth. The Cincinnati Bengals did not. They gave him another chance. So he had this season, and he still has this season. But the excuses are over. And for me personally, watching this team, watching the product that they put on, having this conversation, seeing what the fans, you guys are saying right now in the chat, it is exactly the frustration, and it is pent up clearly on a guy who on national television waved the white flag, not just this week, but last week. So for me personally, I see what people are also saying, Malik, about listen to the press conference. I could not give a shit less about going after this show and watching that press conference. I don't care.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't listened. I haven't looked at a Zac Taylor press conference in a minute. But I want to get to some of these questions here, Dan. Let's get to some of them.
For sure.
And we appreciate you guys for rocking with us, man. We do. We appreciate you again. We do the post-game recap show after every single Bengals game. Some of them are longer than others, but I feel in the mood to talk a little bit, Dan. Let's get some questions.
For sure. So Corey Graham and some other people.
Corey, my dude, what's up, bro?
So he said, Chargers went through the same thing. They got a real coach, built the offensive line. We can still fix this, but action needs to happen. What needs to happen? Some other people were saying.
I hate to say this, man. You remember I was on the Jim Harbaugh train, man. When I knew what Zach was a while ago, man. I was like, they should hire Harbaugh when he was considering coming back to NFL. When it was very clear he was going to be coming back because the suspension was coming down from Michigan, I was like 100%. They should bring him in. What did Aikman say? So somebody said taking shots. Somebody tell me what Aikman said. So he said, did you you guys hear Aikman? Tell us what he said. Because I probably missed that. But let's get to some more questions.
For sure. And I know he was definitely saying the Bengals were embarrassing, but we'll see what he says. Some other people are saying how much of this is blamed on the front office and Duke Tobin.
100% is on the front office as well. You kept this man in the spot, and you knew he was in over his head.
Yeah, totally. And the way I look at it too is the same thing. This isn't also just about the personnel. It is clearly about the product you're putting, not only like I said with the players, but with the coaches as well. Some people were saying Joe Brady. What's your guys' thoughts on Joe Brady or maybe even Brian Flores as head coach?
You can go.
So for me, the way I look at it is I think it's very clear. I mean, we'll have this conversation, but Joe Brady should definitely be in the conversation because of the connection he has to Joe Burrow and because he is that next offensive mind. And he's having a lot of success with the Buffalo Bills. But the way I look at it, for me, I want to kick the tires on these other guys that have been there before, that have done it, and that have built cultures and have won at the highest of levels. So that's just kind of the way I look at it. Esther Wing said, the window is to win it all is closing. I've recently come to the conclusion that the trio of Burrow, Chase, and T winning it together may not happen. Honestly, makes me sad, but because they deserve it. What needs to change for these guys to win?
Keep going. I'm sorry. I'm getting a bunch of messages.
No, you're good. So I mean, the way I look at that is it's got to be the head coach that changes. It's got to be the head coach, and that's where you start and see where the chips fall. But it's clear for a guy who's been here for 7 years, a guy who has had his chances. That's the truth. They went to a Super Bowl. They went to an AFC championship. They had a Triple Crown winner last year, and they couldn't get it done. That is something very clearly. You had your opportunities, and it's not like this team hasn't been in position to succeed. They have been. And at some point, you got to look at the man in the mirror, and you got to look at the guy up top, and he's got to be willing to take a fall. And whether he likes it or not, I believe that is the avenue they need to go. So Fabian said coaching needs to change. We have 3 years. I totally agree. Coaching definitely needs to change. Some people were saying, what would be the biggest positives that you guys had for the game today? For me, I think there were a couple things that I definitely liked. I would say some players we could shout out. Obviously, Dax Hill, I thought played well.
Yeah, Dax is a dog, man. Dax is a dog, man. He continues to prove that he's the best corner on the team, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. I thought he showed up in a big way. And those are kind of things you got to look for. You got to look for the guys. Hey, who are the potential cornerstones for this team? He's coming up on a 5th-year option at some point. I definitely think he could be one of the quote unquote cornerstones that you build around. I thought he looked good. Ryan Rico had a couple nice punts.
Chris, what you talking about? Can't just focus on Zach. Listen, is it easy to make a change? A change that you like? Let's talk about this for a second. Hear me out. Just level with me. I hate to make this wear this on Zach, but if you're the head coach of a team and your team is unprepared, you have to wear it. You can't just wear it when the offense is. You're the head coach of the team. You wear everything. It's the whole as a whole. Like, so it's not just can't blame everything on Zach. It is much easier to remove. Zach is a problem, right? Can we all agree Zach's not a solution?
Yes.
So by him not being a solution, by default, he's a problem. So moving on from Zach is not a bullying him. I like Zach Taylor. Dude was awesome to me. I'm just a realist, and I speak honest. At the end of the day, people could say move on from Duke all you want, but Duke has the ear of Mike Brown. Duke has the respect of Mike Brown. They have trusted Duke to build these rosters. What do you think is more realistic? The team moving off of Duke Tobin or moving off of Zach Taylor? The Duke Tobin doesn't even have the title general manager. Even though we all know he is the de facto general manager, he doesn't even have the title of moving off of general manager. So even if they were to bring, let's say they were to hire Trey Brown. Remember they brought in, they gave 3 people the assistant general manager title this year. One of them was Trey Brown. Like, this is an organization that is very tight-knit. They treat people like family. They keep people close. It's not, respectfully, Duke could have been under fire for a lot of drafts. And he's hit on a lot of drafts recently, but do you think that the organization is looking at Duke as the issue right now, or do you think that they're looking at Zach as the issue? Let's be real with ourselves. As the fan base, we could say, yeah, 100%. But at the same time, is the organization going to change their stripes and how they go about, evaluating the offensive line position, signing guards, and really paying top market for those guys? Or are they just Like for me, it's like this is an organizational problem as a whole. It's about the philosophy and how you approach things. Like it's not just about like Duke. Moving on from Duke Tobin, they will bring a different person in here that's going to abide by the things that they want. Like I'm just being real here.
Mhm.
Somebody's taking shots. He says, Malik, what will it take in your eyes to get rid of he said, sorry, what will it take in your eyes to get rid of Zach based off of Bengals history of keeping coaches? I think we got to realize, man, hear me out. Marvin Lewis was the longest tenured Bengals coach. And I think people kind of throw a lot of stock into that because I think they throw a lot of stock into that because you know, they're like, well, Zach Taylor brought us to a Super Bowl. The Bengals are hard pressed to move off of him. I want you to be I want us to be real with ourselves. This was a family hire as a whole, right? The family was much more involved with the hiring of Zach Taylor than Mike Brown was himself. It was so hard for Mike Brown to move off of Marvin Lewis because Marvin Lewis was the winningest head coach, the only head coach he's had success with since he took over as the owner of the Bengals. Every other coach was an absolute shitstorm. So when he finally got a chance to bring in a coach like Marvin Lewis, who was highly respected, he didn't want to let him go. Marvin Lewis and him became super close, so it became like family to him. He almost became like Duke Tobin, right? That all being said, they held on to Marvin Lewis. They held on to Marvin Lewis because Marvin Lewis helped change the reputation of the Cincinnati Bengals. He helped erase the stench that was the 90s off of the Cincinnati Bengals. So therefore, they stuck by him. I don't know if you guys remember, but it was very real. Marvin Lewis and Mike Brown used to meet every week. A lot of coaches don't get that one-on-one time with owners. I can tell you right now, Zach Taylor does not get that one-on-one type of relationship with ownership group. I could tell you that right now. I promise you, he does not get that. I also can tell you Mike Brown and Zach Taylor have had words exchanged. It has not always been pleasant. The coaching staff has had words exchanged with Mike Brown and the family. Mike Brown has done things that Zach Taylor didn't necessarily agree with. One of those things was bringing Frank Pollack back. That was not something that Zach Taylor wanted to do, but that is something that Mike Brown wanted to do. So I think that y'all view, I think y'all think their relationship. I don't think y'all take into account how much of this is like a family operated run business. The fact that the Bengals went to the Super Bowl with Zach Taylor, they needed that run because I don't think if Zach Taylor went to the Super Bowl, I think they would have moved off from Zach Taylor. I think if they would have fell short when Joe Burrow came back off the ACL tear, they would move off of Zach Taylor. But they went to the Super Bowl, made a run, then they went to the AFC Championship. Cool. Then Joe Burrow gets hurt, and it was like, all right, we can't really blame him for it.
Mm-hmm.
Then Joe Burrow comes back, he has a crazy year. There was a lot that sort of went into things. Why Zach Taylor was given a lot of grace, but he does not have anywhere near the relationship that Marvin Lewis had built up over a 16-year period with Mike Brown. One thing Marvin Lewis did is he understood to play the politic game. He understood what it meant to, you know, obviously talk with the ownership, have them have your back. Have the players also really rallied around Marvin Lewis. And Marvin Lewis was highly respected around the league. So when we talk about the relationship that Zach Taylor has with Mike Brown, understand something. It has nowhere near the same level of understanding of relationship that, you know, that Marvin Lewis and Mike Brown had. You also got to remember, Mike Brown's a little more detached from ownership. He's a little, I mean, he's a little bit more detached, right, when it comes to that. So, like, there is a huge age gap between him and Zach Taylor. With Marvin Lewis, yeah, there's an age gap too, but they had a lot in common. They shared a common interest, a common goal to make the Bengals the best team that they could possibly be. And so, at the end of the day, when you take everything into account, please do not look at, hey, the Bengals won't move off of Zach Taylor just because they didn't move off of Marvin Lewis. Marvin Lewis changed the face of the Bengals and how they were viewed around the National Football League. They cannot be compared. They cannot be compared. And I know that sounds crazy because one guy took us to a Super Bowl. The other guy was our winningest head coach. But you have to ask yourself, if Joe Burrow had a better coach, do you think that coach would be able to get more success, if not, if not replicate the same exact success that Zach has had with a Joe Burrow? And that's what we're talking about here. That's what we're splitting hairs talking about here. So I say all that to say, I think Zach Taylor is more in trouble than people want to admit, and then people give him credit. But I understand why you guys are holding your reservations. You're more so of the like, hey, you got to show me thing. I think if this thing keeps going, keep going downhill, and has a chance to go downhill with the Packers and Lions now,
Yep.
I think, like I said, it wouldn't shock me if they moved off. That's all I'll say regarding that.
And this, like I said, and you nailed it best. This could get bad. And the perfect point is, I understand there's context for a lot of the past situations. The Joe Burrow injury, and hell, even last year, it was clear something needed to happen. But what did they do? They made the move for Lou.
Well, one thing I want to say too, Chris, you said I'm just being honest with you. You said you're talking like Mike is still in charge. That's my whole freaking point. When this family not shown you that they're a little bit, that Mike Brown still calls the shots. Make no mistake about it. If Mike Brown wants a coach gone, that's going to happen. Matter of fact, it already fucking happened. It happened when he came in and he cleared out Zach's entire first-year staff that he wanted. That was a Mike Brown decision. What people don't know. Even some people who cover the team don't know that. That was a Mike Brown decision. And Zach was fucking pissed. Zach was flipping shit. He was pissed. And he realized at that point, you got to fall in line. So I say all that to say, I'm not tweeting. I'm not talking like Mike Brown's in charge of it, but you're missing the point. This dude is old as shit at this point, respectfully. They want to win a championship. They're going to put out all the stop to win a championship. They're going to put out all the stops to win a championship.
Mm-hmm.
So I say all that to say, you're kidding yourself. Because guess what? This family, respectfully, has severed and broken promises with players when they told players they wouldn't cut them. That's a fact. When they told players they wouldn't move off of them. That is a fact. When they told players they would sign them when the time was right. That is a fact. Trey Hendrickson, right before your very own eyes. Promises have been broken. Katie, in this family regime that is in charge, they're much more cutthroat than what Mike Brown has been. And I say all that to say, Zach does not have the ear to them like Mike Brown and Marvin Lewis, that relationship that they had. That is what I will say.
No, for sure. A lot of people are talking about Ja'Marr Chase's tweet, and he just tweeted. It was probably in response to him walking up to Zach Taylor and showing his frustration. He said, man, y'all better leave me alone, man. I play with passion. Like, it's nothing much to really make of it. I just agree with him. And that's part of my frustration with this is when you look at it, Ja'Marr played with passion. These dudes were pissed off. And I saw somebody, and this is the next comment I want to get to, was somebody saying that they shouldn't have paid T. Higgins. I believe it was King Slime. He said, should have never re-signed T. Higgins. Tinsley and Burton are both better. This conversation should not even be about T. Higgins. For me, T. Higgins had a 50-50 ball that he grabbed and mossed the hell out of Riley Moss. T. Higgins looked good today. Both the balls on the right boundary and the left boundary were passes that were not even close to even being able to have a chance. Every other pass T. Higgins caught. So for me, when I look at this game, T. Higgins doesn't even come up in this conversation. T is a quality wide receiver. And I understand maybe you could say, okay, allocate other resources. That's not the problem here. Whether T. Higgins was on the team today or not, the same outcome would have happened. They would have got slumped. And they did today. And that's why the conversation is about Zach Taylor and getting these guys ready to play, because they did not look like they were ready to play. And quite frankly, like I said, they quit. We had another person was asking about Geno Stone. Do you guys think that they re-signed Geno Stone after the season? Once again, doesn't move the needle for me. I agree. They should probably get an upgrade over Geno Stone, but that's not the way I look at this game. Geno Stone was the least of their worries. He missed multiple tackles, sure, but Cam Taylor-Britt, same thing, missed multiple tackles. Couldn't stick with the wide receiver, got crossed over by Cortland Sutton. Like, a lot of players on the defense side missed plays. Geno Stone looked like he lacked pop, looked like he lacked juice in the run game. Should they re-sign him, or should they get an upgrade? Probably. At this point, in my eyes, what can you do? Justin Simmons is out there. It's not the biggest concern of mine to look at the safety position. Timothy said, "What's your guys' thoughts on the defensive line?" I mean, they, in terms of pass rush, they played piss poor. I mean, I like TJ Slaton. He made a couple very good plays in the run game. I thought they held up in the run game at times, but it's clear the straw that broke the camel's back was in the third quarter, and they were getting ran all over. At some point, there's only so much you can do as a defense when your offense puts up 3 points. And the defensive line, they couldn't get pressure. Trey Henderson was held without a sack today. It wasn't pretty. Like, I don't think anybody really touched Bo Nix outside of maybe 2 plays, but all around the defensive line was whatever. It was not at all a focal point, and they had a grand total of 1 quarterback hit on the day today, and they had a grand total of 1 tackle for a loss, which was made by BJ Hill. So defensive line did not play very good in the pass game. Bullion said, "What is you guys' biggest concern? Is it Zach Taylor or is it the roster?" At this point, for me, it's Zach Taylor. It's very clear. You even look at last year. I understand there's points we can make offensive line. We can make defense. You can make points about should have kept Jesse Bates. We should have kept so-and-so. You should have added to the defensive line. Shamar Stewart is not playing. There's a lot we can point to the talent that is on the football field, but I cannot look at the 13 points that this team put up over the past 2 games. I cannot look at the way that this team performed in the fourth quarter of the past 2 games and say that is on the players solely, because that is a coaching problem. That is not having you guys ready to play. So this is definitely a much more, and even the realistic conversation. What are you going to do right now, talent-wise, to change up the team besides the quarterback? And we talked about that. They should probably go and at least look for an upgrade. But in season, there's not a whole lot you can do. It's the coaching staff right now, and it's their job and their responsibility. Benjamin Harrison says Zach Taylor is the problem, not the roster. 1,000% agree. And like I said, we can talk about the roster, but it is not the whole problem. Once you're in the season, you got to look at your head coach. You got to look at the guys inside the building, and the head man right now is Zach Taylor. So we had Liam Walters said they should bring Dalton back. I think Dalton is he's got his hands pretty full over there in Carolina, and I think that they've got some use for him with their concerns about Bryce Young and their concerns all around about their team. Christopher Robinson said T is what Joe Burrow wanted. Exactly. And they re-signed T, and we, like I said, this season, the way the season has panned out so far, for me personally, I'm not blaming this on them re-signing T. Higgins over allocating those funds elsewhere. Fabian said Myles Murphy looked lost out there. He didn't really get much of a chance, and he didn't do much. He didn't. I liked he had 1 very good rep from the inside when they kicked him on the inside on one of these run plays. He moved J.K. Dobbins, who got almost a tackle for a loss for T.J. Slaton. But yeah, Myles Murphy didn't do it for me today. Andrew Torres said, try talking to the Eagles to trade for Tanner McKee. Tanner McKee doesn't really move the needle for me. He's good. I like him. Balled out against the Cincinnati Bengals in the playoffs, and I mean in the preseason. And this is a point where you got to kick the tires everywhere. But like I personally would start in New York. That's what I was starting. Griffin McQuaid said, bring in Joe Milton. I'm good off of Joe Milton. And the Cowboys just traded from this offseason. I don't think there's no world in my mind Joe Milton comes in and can execute this offense. So what the level the Bengals would need. Nichelle Jones said, what about Trey Lance? I like Trey Lance, but it's kind of the same concerns. Trey Lance isn't proven. And the whole purpose of the quarterback that you would potentially bring in right now is for a guy that is proven, that is a veteran, a guy that knows, the intricacies of the NFL. Trey Lance has not started many games at the NFL. So for me, I like Trey Lance, but I also think the Los Angeles Chargers like him as well. So I would probably not go the Trey Lance route, just because as well, you're looking at a guy for a quarterback. You want the guy for the next 8 to 10 weeks to try to keep you in the playoff race so Joe Burrow can come back. That's the whole reason why you're looking at a quarterback. You're not looking at a guy who's going to be there for the next couple seasons. It's, hey, who can help me win right now and who can help hold down the fort right now? Gilly said, give me Russell Wilson, period. I agree, and I think he's one of the top guys who's in the conversation, and his contract isn't huge. So it's not like a Kirk Cousins contract. You're not taking on $25 million of cap. You're taking on a couple million. And we know that's going to be a huge focal point for the Bengals as well, is the cap situation. Fabian also said the Lions would trade for Trey Hendrickson. We talked about this on the Sit Down Morning Show last week, and you guys can tune in to that 10:30 in the mornings on Monday, Thursday, and Friday. But it just doesn't really, I don't know, man. It just doesn't really do it for me. Looking at a Trey Hendrickson trade right now, the bigger fish to fry is your head coach. And I don't believe that you should go out there and make a move to trade away Trey Hendrickson if there is no resolution at your head coach position. Because if you're looking to trade away Trey, you're saying your season is pretty much over. You are looking to recoup assets. You're looking down to the future. You're looking at next year's draft. And the only way I'm looking there is if the head coach situation is figured out. So for me, I'm holding out on the Trey Hendrickson trade conversation up until you figure out what is the verdict on Zac Taylor with the Cincinnati Bengals. We had a couple people. John said, what do you guys think about Jameis Winston? Should he be a potential option?
No interceptions. He's led the league in interceptions like, what, 2-3 years? Like, bro, like the point I'm trying to make is any quarterback you bring in here is going to have a learning curve, right? It just is what it is. You just have to find a way to tear it up and make it work for you somehow.
Taking Shots said there's no creativity for sure. And that's the offense looked stagnant. The offense looked putrid. It just lacked want to, and it lacked creativity. There was nothing inspiring about this offensive performance outside of that first drive when T. Higgins had an amazing grab. And once again, how did you get Ja'Marr Chase involved? It was you had a couple of quick plays at the beginning of the game. I like it, but it's the same conversation. What are you doing? How are you game planning for this team, the Denver Broncos? I understand Pat Surtain is on the team, but we saw that first drive. Ja'Marr Chase is the best wide receiver in the NFL, and he's got a great matchup, but he was toasting Patrick Surtain. What? On the first drive, holding penalty, Patrick Surtain. Third play, beat him to the outside. That's why you pay these guys. Ja'Marr is that good. And for me to watch these other teams get guys involved in end arounds, quick screens, didn't do that to the fourth quarter.
Can I be honest with you? I just want to clear up this narrative. I'm not a fan of moving on from coaches in season. Okay. Reason being is because you pretty much are waving the white flag, and it's unfair to the players, it's unfair to the whoever the interim coach is, because they're not getting an honest assessment and an honest fair shake. We got to see how this process continues to look. But what I'm saying is right now, and I want to leave you guys with this because it is pretty late. What we've seen from the product that we've gotten, right, the last 2 weeks have been a team that's been unprepared and not executing. Simple as that. When you have losses that are as big as the ones the Bengals have had and as bad as the ones the Bengals have had, that is when people will start to question, is this team better off with Zac at the helm for the rest of the season or without? Because at that point, people are saying it can't get any worse than what it's been. That is why this conversation is coming up. For anyone that takes what I'm saying, do I think the Bengals need a new voice at head coach? Yes. But do I think that new voice should come right now? No. Because that new voice will still have his ideology, even though the voice, the person at the helm, would be different. That is just my thoughts. Victoria Mitchell said, Malik, I feel it's unfair. I'm expected to watch and accept this shit. A lot of people feel that way. I feel bad for the folks that spent their hard-earned money to go to Denver, and that was the product that they got. Listen, we're gonna have a lot more to talk about, guys. It is late. People are pumped up. People are fired up. We appreciate y'all for I feel like people are have a lot that are on their minds, and I understand why you do. Contrary to some belief, some people think, oh well, you're just putting out stuff just so you can get. Now, listen, I do this show so people can sound off. That is why we did this show. If you have anything to hang your hat on, if you're a baseball fan, Cincinnati, well, tomorrow the Reds play. All right, we'll see. Well, today, I guess. Taking Shots said, when would you fire him? I think that I gotta watch my words here, but I would see how the product looks going into the bye week. That is what I would say. Or maybe even before that. If it's really, really bad and it is starting to fall off the wheels, I think you have to have serious conversations. But you better have a contingency plan in place. And you better not just throw shit to the wall hoping that it sticks. So that's just my thought process on this whole thing. We'll see what happens. If you guys could do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications. We appreciate you guys for always tuning in and sticking with us on the recap show. We'll be back live Wednesday for State of the Jungle at 7 p.m. And then I'll be back again live on Thursday. My sit-down interview with 𝗕𝗏𝗪 will be going live on the channel Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure you guys stay plugged in for that. Again, chin up. Enjoy Bengals football, man. Enjoy Bengals football. You know, at the end of the day, I don't have the words to say that are comforting. I don't know what to say to sell you something, and I'm not going to try to sell you anything. What I will say is you're allowed to feel how you feel and allow yourself to be pissed. Allow yourself to be annoyed because the expectations were so much higher. And when Joe Burrow went out, the expectations were low, but holy shit, they weren't this low. So, again, allow yourself to feel this way. Be pissed. Who we got next week? The Packers?
Yeah.
And then you gotta gear up for Green Bay.
Oh,
Simple as that.
Yeah, it's a Lions.
Lions.
Packers.
Okay, you got the Lions. Gear up for Lions. The biggest game in home game of the season, right? So, again, appreciate y'all for sticking with me. I appreciate you guys supporting. I appreciate you guys for hearing me out and listening to our opinions. Because again, you guys really help to make our content tick. We appreciate y'all. We're gonna keep riding out this season, keep bringing you guys the content. Again, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications. But until next time, 𝗦𝗣𝗢𝗟𝗏𝗦𝗢𝗡.
This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well, you better know.